Mental health challenges, well, they seem to be everywhere these days, don't they? They touch so many of us directly or indirectly.
Absolutely.
And finding that path to well-being, it can feel really, really complicated.
Hmm.
But, how much do our deepest convictions, like especially our religious beliefs, how much do they actually shape that journey?
That's a huge question.
It is. And that's what we're exploring today, because for a long time, maybe too long, the conversation around mental health often sort of sidestepped this critical dimension, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. It was often minimized, particularly in traditional Western psychology.
Exactly. So our deep dive today is going to unpack a really groundbreaking new research paper. It's called Measure of Religious Beliefs About Mental Health, Development and Validation Among Christians and Muslims.
Right.
And our mission really is to shine a light on this new psychological tool, the MRBMH, and look at its, well, pretty profound implications for understanding mental health and also addressing it in a truly culturally sensitive way.
It represents a significant shift, yeah.
Yeah, it really does. It feels like a fascinating turn from how psychology maybe traditionally approached faith.
Mm.
It's easy to think of beliefs as just ideas floating around in our heads.
Sure.
But before we get to this new tool, this MRBMH, why are beliefs themselves, just generally, so incredibly important in psychology? And then maybe more specifically, why do religious beliefs hold such a sort of crucial influence on our mental well-being?
Well, you've hit on something really fundamental there. Beliefs are essentially the basic building blocks of our minds. They're not just passive ideas. They actively shape everything. How we perceive the world, our attitudes, our behaviors, how we react to things, how we cope.
Right.
They provide us with frameworks, for understanding our experiences. They guide our decisions, help us regulate our emotions, build resilience. It's all tied back to these core beliefs.
So we're really active cognitive states.
Exactly. And religious beliefs, well, they often take this a step further because they tend to be such deeply held convictions. They're about the sacred, the divine. They offer guidance on life's biggest questions, purpose, existential concerns, identity. So their influence on our psychosocial well-being, our emotional and social health is just crucial.
Okay.
Think about it. They can provide this profound sense of meaning in life. They often correlate with higher life satisfaction and can even encourage pro-social behaviors, actions that benefit others.
That makes sense.
However, and this is really important, it's definitely a dual-edged sword.
Ah, okay. How so?
Well, while we have a lot of research showing positive links, faith often connects to better mental health outcomes sometimes. People can develop ways of thinking about their faith that are actually unhelpful.
Right.
Researchers call these maladaptive religious cognitions. For example, if someone perceives suffering only as a punishment from God, that belief can actually intensify their distress. It doesn't help them cope. It makes it worse.
I see.
And this can lead to what we call religious struggles, feelings like anger towards God, excessive guilt, despair related to faith. And if these aren't addressed, they can potentially worsen a person's mental health, or even in some cases, increase certain health risks.
Wow.
So it's clear we really need a nuanced understanding. It's not just religion good or religion bad for mental health. It's much more complex.
That's a really powerful idea, the dual-edged sword. Can you give me maybe another example, another maladaptive religious cognition that might be common, something therapists might see? Because it sounds like these aren't just minor thoughts, they're deeply impactful.
Absolutely. That's a great point. Another one you might see is perhaps an extreme belief that an individual is solely responsible for preventing all bad things through, like, perfect piety.
Okay.
And if something bad does happen, they see it as a direct sign of their personal failure or God's intense displeasure. This can lead to just immense guilt and anxiety.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah. Or, sometimes the flip side, a belief that God will sort of magically fix everything without any effort on their part.
Right.
Which, can then hinder them from taking practical steps or seeking professional help when it's genuinely needed. It highlights just how critical it is to understand how these specific beliefs are playing out for an individual.
Okay, so given this really profound impact, both positive and negative, it seems like there really has been a significant gap. A lack of comprehensive tools to really assess this specific connection.
That's exactly right.
And I guess that's where the measure of religious beliefs about mental health, the MRBMH, comes into the picture. Tell us about this new measure.
Precisely. The MRBMH was designed very specifically to evaluate how an individual's religious perspective shapes their views on mental health itself,
Yeah.
on psychological problems, what we sometimes call psychopathology, and even their attitude towards professional therapy.
Ah, okay.
And this tool is incredibly valuable. For practitioners, it allows them to tailor their support to really respect a client's unique belief system.
Which makes sense for effectiveness.
Totally. It helps make therapeutic approaches more culturally sensitive and ultimately, yeah, more effective.
Mm.
It can help a therapist figure out, does this client see their struggles mainly as a religious issue, a psychological one,
Right.
or often a mix of both?
Right.
And crucially, are they open to secular interventions, maybe alongside their faith practices or instead of it? Helps clarify that.
And how is it developed? You mentioned the paper title includes Christians and Muslims.
Yes, it went through some really rigorous development and validation. There were 2 major studies involving nearly 1,900 participants altogether.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is. It was a mix of Christians, about 370, and Muslims, about 1,500. Roughly half were women, and the average age was around 30.
Okay.
And the key takeaway from the development is that it ended up as a 14-item measure. But those items are broken down into 4 distinct areas or subscales.
4 subscales.
Yeah, giving us a much more detailed picture of someone's religious orientation towards mental health than just a single score would.
Okay, that's where it gets really interesting for me. It's not just one broad measure, but digging into specific dimensions. So let's break down these 4 subscales. What exactly do they aim to measure?
Yeah, absolutely. This structure is really the strength of the MRBMH. It captures these different facets of belief.
Okay, what's the first one?
So the first subscale is called Divine Test. This one explores whether an individual sees their life, their challenges, maybe their whole purpose, essentially as a test from God.
A test. Okay.
Yeah. The items here ask things like, my life is a test from God to measure my gratitude towards Him, or to measure my behavior towards others, or to measure the intentions behind my actions.
I see.
And this concept, this idea of life as a divine test, is really deeply rooted in both Christian and Muslim traditions. You see it clearly in scriptures.
Can you give an example?
Sure. In the Bible, Deuteronomy 13.3 says something like, for the Lord your God is testing you. And James talks about the testing of faith producing steadfastness.
Right.
And similarly, in the Qur'an, Surah 67, verse 2 states, he who created death and life to test you as to which of you is best indeed. And another verse, 2.155, explicitly says, we will test you with something. So it's a foundational belief for many.
Okay, that's clear. What's the second subscale?
The second one delves into divine determinism. This measures beliefs about God's will being the primary cause of mental health challenges or abnormalities, and also the idea that both mental suffering and mental peace ultimately come from God.
So like predetermination in a way.
Kind of, yeah. Items here include things like psychological problems are predetermined and carry God's will, and my thoughts and behaviors are dependent on God, or mental harms and mental peace both come from God.
Okay, and scriptural links.
Definitely.
Yeah.
In the Bible, you have passages like Proverbs 16.9, the Lord establishes their steps, or Jeremiah 10.23 about it not being for humans to direct their own steps. And James 4 says, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. And in the Qur'an, you find verses like 57.22 stating, no disaster strikes, except that it is in a register before we bring it into being, which points to that preordained aspect. And 64.11 says, no disaster strikes except by permission of Allah. These verses really underscore that belief in a divine hand-shaping events, including internal states.
Got it. What's number 3?
The third subscale is focused on psychological problems, cure. So this looks at religious beliefs specifically related to how psychological problems can be resolved or cured.
Okay.
It emphasizes certain religious coping mechanisms like, say, giving charity, practicing forgiveness, or having a strong belief in destiny. It also touches on warnings against, like, excessive attachment to worldly things.
Interesting. What kind of items are in this one?
Things like excessive emotional attachment to worldly life causes psychological problems. Or that problems can be resolved by giving charity in the name of God, or by forgiving others in the name of God, or by believing in destiny.
And the scriptural basis.
Again, very clear links. The Bible, for instance, in 1 Timothy, famously warns that the love of money is the root of all evil, connecting worldly attachment to problems. And Jesus' teachings heavily emphasize giving to the needy and forgiveness, like in Colossians 3.13, forgive as the Lord forgave you.
Right.
In the Qur'an, you have verses warning against seeing worldly life as more than diversion and play, like 29.64.
Right.
Explicit examples of the rewards of charity, 2.261.
Right.
Praise for those who pardon others, 3.134. And encouragement to accept destiny, like 9.51. Say, never will we be struck except by what Allah has decreed for us.
Okay, that makes sense. And the last one, the fourth subscale.
The final one is faith-based healing prevention. This assesses beliefs about preventing psychological problems, again, through a religious lens. It stresses things like the need for divine help and practices like self-purification.
So more proactive.
Exactly. Items here include statements like, I must seek help from God in dealing with psychological problems. Only God can end my pain. I must focus on purifying myself, and I must take interest in my religion.
And the scriptures.
Both traditions strongly advocate for seeking divine help. Psalm 34.17 of the Bible says, the righteous cry out, and Lord hears them. And Matthew 11.28 has Jesus' famous invitation, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest.
Mm-hmm.
And the Qur'an is very direct, for instance. 10.17 says, if Allah should touch you with harm, none can remove it except him, emphasizing that ultimate reliance. And 26.80 explicitly states, and when I am ill, it is he who cures me. So this reliance on divine power for both healing and prevention is central.
That's a really powerful and clear breakdown of the four areas. So, okay, the researchers developed this tool. They tested it with, you said, nearly 1,900 people.
That's right.
What did the data actually reveal? I mean, what insights did they gain from applying this measure in the real world?
Right. So the first big finding is that the MRBMH itself proved to be remarkably reliable and robust, meaning it consistently measures what it's supposed to measure, and it does so accurately. They used statistical tests like Cronbach's alpha, which came out excellent in both studies, 0.888 and 0.834, which is very high.
Okay.
And other analyses confirmed that its four-subscale structure, divine test, divine determinism, cure, prevention, really holds up. It accurately reflects these distinct dimensions of belief. So fundamentally, it's a solid, trustworthy tool.
Good to know. So what did they find using the tool? Any surprises?
Yeah, this is where we get into the novel findings, which are genuinely insightful. First off, they found no significant overall difference between men and women in their general religious beliefs about mental health.
Oh, okay. No overall difference.
Yeah, overall difference when you just average everything out. However, when they drilled down into those specific subfactors we just discussed, some really fascinating patterns emerged.
Like what?
Well, women, this is combining both the Christian and Muslim participants, women held significantly stronger beliefs regarding the divine test subscale than men did.
Interesting. Women stronger on life being a test.
Yes. And conversely, men, again, combined across both groups, demonstrated significantly stronger beliefs concerning faith-based healing, the prevention aspect, than women did.
Huh. Men more focused on faith for prevention and healing.
Seems so in this combined sample.
Mm.
And then looking specifically within the Christian group, they found that Christian men held significantly stronger beliefs regarding divine determinism than Christian women did.
Wow, that's really interesting. So no overall gender difference, but then these specific divergences pop up in the subfactors.
Exactly.
When you mention those specific ones, like women stronger on divine test and men on faith-based healing, what do you think might explain that? I mean, are there cultural or maybe societal factors that could play into that kind of difference?
That's a great question. And honestly, the paper itself points towards needing more research on why. We can't draw definitive conclusions just from this one study, but it often hints at things like varying societal roles or perhaps traditional interpretations of scripture, and maybe even the roles people play within their religious communities.
Oh.
For instance, it's possible that women in many cultural contexts are perhaps more often encouraged to view trials and tribulations as these divine challenges that build character or patience. That could lead to a stronger divine test perspective.
Right, that makes a certain kind of sense.
Yeah. And men, perhaps, are more often cast in roles as, like, active providers or protectors, which might translate into a stronger emphasis on faith-based healing as a more direct, almost active form of seeking divine intervention or protection.
Interesting thought.
It really highlights how important the cultural context is and how these beliefs get expressed or emphasized.
Definitely. What else did the findings show?
Well, beyond the gender nuances, the study found a significant and positive relationship between holding these religious beliefs about mental health and an individual's what they measured as religious, moral, and spiritual intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
And also improved religious, moral, and spiritual well-being.
Mm-hmm.
So stronger beliefs linked to better spiritual well-being and intelligence.
That seems intuitive, maybe.
It does. but it's important to validate it. And perhaps most crucially, they found that stronger religious beliefs about mental health, as measured by the MRBMH, were associated with a significant reduction in religious, moral, and spiritual problems.
Ah, okay. So holding these beliefs was linked to fewer spiritual struggles.
Precisely. So, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really underscores the integral role these beliefs play. What this study truly reveals, I think, is that for a huge number of people, mental health isn't just a psychological battleground.
Right.
It's deeply interwoven with their spiritual journey. And if we ignore that dimension, we're missing a massive piece of the puzzle needed for effective care.
That's a powerful point.
Yeah. And the finding about reducing problems, it suggests that the takeaway isn't just that faith is present alongside mental health issues. It's that when these religious beliefs are positively integrated, they can become almost like a quantifiable, well, maybe a superpower against psychosocial challenges for some people.
Power. I like that.
Well, it suggests that for many, their faith isn't just a passive comfort blanket. It's an active, critical part of their mental resilience toolkit.
Okay, so bringing it all together, what's this all mean for you listening? For mental health professionals out there, or frankly, for anyone just trying to navigate their own well-being or support people they care about? How does this research translate for us?
Yeah, the practical implications are really significant. The MRBMH, this tool, it offers truly invaluable insights for people on the front lines.
Like therapists. Yeah.
Exactly. Therapists, counselors, psychiatrists.
Yeah.
It's a powerful tool to help them understand how a client's specific religious orientation shapes their view of mental health, and, importantly, their potential openness or resistance to therapy itself.
Okay.
And knowing that is absolutely crucial. If you want to tailor culturally sensitive and, genuinely effective therapeutic approaches, you have to meet people where they are.
Can you give some concrete examples of how a therapist might use this?
Sure. Let's say a client scores high on the divine determinism subscale.
Yeah.
They really attribute their problems to God's preordained will.
Okay.
A therapist, knowing this, could then explore the feelings of helplessness that might come with that belief. They could work with the client to help reconcile those religious beliefs with a sense of personal agency. Maybe framing professional help not as contradicting God's will, but as one of the means God provides for healing.
I see. Integrating it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or take a client who strongly believes problems can be resolved through charity or forgiveness based on the cure subscale.
Right.
Instead of dismissing those beliefs as irrelevant to therapy, a good therapist could actually integrate these practices into the broader therapeutic approach. They can leverage the client's existing coping mechanisms and values.
Makes sense.
What about a client who feels very strongly, only God can end my pain, which aligns with the prevention healing scale?
Yeah, that seems like a potential barrier to therapy.
It could be. But a therapist aware of this belief, perhaps through the MRBMH, could provide gentle psychoeducation. They could help the client see that seeking professional help doesn't necessarily conflict with their faith. It can align with the belief that God works through various means, including human expertise and compassion.
Okay.
And one more for clients who really emphasize self-purification and religious devotion as key to mental wellness. Therapists might explore using faith-based cognitive restructuring techniques or even mindfulness practices that are rooted in the client's own religious teachings. This could significantly enhance how effective therapy feels to them, making it resonate much more deeply with their core beliefs.
So it's really about tailoring the approach based on these specific belief patterns.
Precisely. It moves beyond a one-size-fits-all model.
That seems incredibly important. Does this apply beyond Christianity and Islam, do you think? The study focused there, but...
That's a really interesting point. While the tool was validated specifically with Christian and Muslim participants, the fascinating thing is that many of the underlying religious concepts it captures, well, they're definitely present in other major world religions too.
Like which ones?
Think about Judaism, Hinduism. You find common themes like life involving tests or trials, wrestling with divine will or karma, the importance of reliance on God or a higher power, and using specific religious coping mechanisms, prayer, meditation, scripture study, community support to deal with psychological distress.
So the core ideas might be transferable.
Potentially, yes. It suggests the underlying principles, the types of beliefs the MRBMH measures, might have much broader applicability, though obviously specific tools would need validation in those different contexts.
Right. Context is key. And speaking of context, it's probably important to acknowledge one specific aspect of this study's context, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. The study mentions this as a limitation. The Christian participants in this research were living as a religious minority within a predominantly Muslim-majority country. And that experience, being part of a minority faith group, might naturally affect their experiences, how they express their beliefs, maybe even the specific role faith plays in their coping compared to Christians living in, say, North America or Europe, where they might be part of the majority culture.
That makes sense. It could shape things differently.
It could. So it really does highlight the need for future research using this tool, or similar ones, in really diverse cultural settings. Western countries, African countries, Asian countries, to see if these findings, especially the nuances like the gender differences, hold true more universally, or if they shift based on that majority-minority status and cultural backdrop.
Definitely more to explore there. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into how religious beliefs intersect with mental health and how a tool like the MRBMH can actually help us understand that complex connection much better. It feels like it truly opens up a new avenue for understanding ourselves and others.
I agree. It's bridging a gap that needed bridging.
It really makes you wonder, though. Here's something maybe for you to think about. How might that broader societal context we just touched on, whether someone belongs to a majority or perhaps a minority religious group, how might that actually influence the expression of these beliefs, or maybe even the reliance on them, particularly when someone is facing significant mental health challenges?
That's a profound question.
It is something to mull over. Consider how your own beliefs, or maybe the beliefs of people around you, might shape the approach to mental health. And it really underscores the profound importance of finding and providing culturally sensitive care that respects the whole person, including their deepest convictions.